Knicks fans, how you doing? Probably better than me right now. It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School podcast, coming at you from a new recording studio. Shout out to anybody. Listen, this is how we get above 10,000 YouTube subscribers.
Yes, this is how.
If you're just listening on the pod, I am currently recording from my daughter's bedroom, my older daughter's bedroom, AKA the quarantine zone. So for anybody who didn't check the newsletter over the weekend, my entire family has COVID. Good times. Great weekend to get it, right? Also, all kinds of plans. No, all down the shitter. So I've been, for the most part, spending my time in my older daughter's bedroom. So if you watch this on the YouTube, you get to see over my right shoulder, the Barbie Dream House. And I think a little bit of, oh my God, what's that? What's the movie that came out? The Tale of the Giant Blue Dragon that, Raya, yeah. Although the dragon is called Sisu, I believe. And over my left shoulder, some macaroni art that my daughter made. So that's what we're doing here now as we record this first post. Well, it's not the first post free agency podcast because we did the Mitch emergency pod, but this is the first kind of normal pod that we've done after all the dust has settled. Although there may be some more dust to kick up before it's all said and done. Before we get to that, I'll ask you, how are you doing, Andrew Claudio?
Significantly better, it sounds, John. I had plans this weekend that weren't interrupted, and I feel bad for your situation. Well, I got to say, as a producer here, I think I want that Barbie Dream House in the background of all videos going forward. So make it happen. I need to see it every time that we come on screen.
I'll see if I can make that happen. Maybe that'll be the new KFS background.
That's the adjustment. There you go. You got rid of the studio, the door with the Julius poster with the plate, and now we've gone to Barbie's Dream House. Everybody's okay, though, like as far as
everybody's good. It's fun. I actually, not to get too far into this, but the first thing I did this morning was I tested my older daughter because she's been feeling fine for several days, and we're past the initial 5-day window where it's like after 5 days, I guess you're allowed to like go out and about with a mask on and go outside. And we may take a drive later or something. I'll risk my life. But she's feeling fine. My wife's a little tired. And then the baby is just, being a baby. But
the baby's being a baby.
The baby's being a baby.
Gotcha.
But it hasn't been the worst thing in the world, I got to say, because I got to spend a lot of time this weekend alone in my thoughts, as it were, about everything the Knicks did and everything the Knicks may still do and everything the Knicks arguably could do, but half the fan base seems them not to want to do, and the other half is like, the rest of you guys are idiots. Do it now. That's my best Arnold impersonation.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been thinking a lot about this stuff, and it feels like so by the way, Jeremy is enjoying his 4th of July vacation, which is why Andrew's here. But it's good because I haven't got a chance to really talk to you about this, and I haven't got a chance to talk to anybody about, what's been going on and the rumors and this and that. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Good. I think the dust settling is interesting because I think Knicks fans thought there'd be more than just, Jalen Brunson / Hartenstein / Mitch resigning, and I don't know if like Jeremy and his big brain projecting a Bradley Beal plan or potentially getting into the DeAndre Ayton sweepstakes. And I think what ended up happening was largely forecasted for a while that they were going to make a big play for Jalen Brunson to finally get a lead guard in here. They went after we heard the Mo Bamba rumors. We heard other stretch 5 options. And then they end up with Hartenstein, who, I mean, your newsletter today talked about the different look that he gives the Knicks as a backup center, and potentially on nights when Mitch doesn't have it, which you hope don't happen as often when you're paying him $15 million a year, or however the contract details play out. But like he gives them an element that they were trying to make happen when Noel was taking a couple threes last year, or Taj was taking multiple threes last year. But his passing ability also helps when you have cutters like Obi and RJ and Brunson, opportunistic cutters, as I'm quoting Jonathan Macri.
Smart and opportunistic cutters. And again, one of the benefits to having your 4th of July weekend shafted by COVID is, well, other people were outside enjoying hot dogs and hamburgers, and at night watching fireworks. I was sitting there watching film of Isaiah Hartenstein assists. Let me tell you, cheap assists, he is not in the business of getting. This dude earns his dimes. I feel badly because I feel like he got the shaft on free agency day because we were still very focused on Brunson and we were still very focused on what might happen, what might be coming down the pike. This dude's really good. You know, it's only 10 game sample size, but he had an 8 assist game. I'm spoiling a newsletter for either later this week or next week by saying this, but it's fine. He had an 8 assist game with it was the 10th to last game of the season against the Jazz. It was a blowout. The Clippers got killed. So they just let him run the offense in the fourth quarter. He had 7 assists in 10 minutes in the fourth quarter. From that point forward, he had more assists per 36 minutes than any center in the league, including Nikola Jokic. Knicks fans are going to like him. He's really good. He's not really bad at anything. The only thing he doesn't do is like create shots, but like there's a lot of centers that don't do that.
Do you foresee this becoming a...
Yes. I already know. Ask the question. I know the answer.
Do you foresee this becoming at a certain point this year, because of how Hartenstein is performing, the campaign or the outcries for Hartenstein to start might start to show up, or if not start, be the primary in the same way like Derrick Rose was really the starting point guard 2 years ago, but Alfred Payton started games.
I think there will be a little bit of that. I think we hope that Mitch will play well, and as long as Mitch plays well, here's the thing. I think there are great arguments. It's funny how this is what we're talking about. Meanwhile, like the Donovan Mitchell giant cloud is hanging out. We're going to get to it, I promise. I think there are arguments for Hartenstein's skill set, and then those of Brunson and RJ. And then there are arguments for Mitch. Like Mitch is better at one thing than anybody else in basketball. It's offensive rebounding. And RJ is better at one thing than everybody else in basketball, and that's missing shots at the rim. I say that a little facetiously, but sadly it's true. So that's a nice combination. But at the same, my prediction, there will be calls for it, and those calls will unsurprisingly go unanswered, because I think Tibbs is going to look at this backup unit that he has, much as he did last year, and say, that's when I'm going to win the game. And I think it's going to be another year of let's just try to keep it even with the starters, and let's go try to win it with the backups. And we'll see now with Brunson there if it works. But
a formula that worked 2 years ago,
41 and 31 worked pretty well.
Yeah, like I think Julius was unreal 2 years ago. So like you give him the accolades, but the Knicks won in those second quarter runs with Derrick Rose and Obi and Quickly and Burks and either Taj or Noel. And then, in those comebacks that would happen in the late third, early fourth 2 years ago. The issue was that Derrick Rose, too many miles were on his tires. And so that capability to come back didn't happen, this past year,
So the other interesting little development, and I think Ian was the first. I mean, people have been spitballing this as a possibility since last season. God knows we did on a lot of post games, but Ian put it out there there are some within the organization who think, Brunson needs a better defensive backcourt partner. And then Steve Popper had a note on it in his column the other day.
We touched on it during the live stream with Benji, and with honestly, all 5 of us were like, this team probably would be more balanced if they go to a Grimes starting 2, which like the Mavs sign and trade for Fournier is still out there. I doubt it's going to happen, but
here's the nice thing at this point is like, I know everybody's waiting for that next shoe to drop. I'm going to save the Julius conversation for give me a minute. That's its own conversation. Just focusing in on Fournier. If he's here, I actually buy the little snippets that we're hearing and that Grimes could be a starter, because if you go with the theory that I just posited a minute ago, Grimes in the starting lineup as a much better defender than Fournier, and I can't wait to see the steps that he takes defensively next season. As him and RJ are your two primo wing defenders, and then Mitch is the backstop. Well, you don't really have to score a ton of points theoretically to stay even with your opponent if those are your foundational pieces. And Brunson could hold his own a little bit on defense, and then you have Julius. We'll see. And then Fournier all of a sudden steps into the Burks backup role. So then imagine if you had a backup unit of Rose, Quickly, Fournier, Obi, and Hartenstein. I mean, I feel like we said this last year. It'll go doubly so. That's the best backup 5 in the league, and I don't know if it's close.
I look at Fournier taking the Burks role and going to that backup 3, basically.
That's what he should be.
So the Hawks 2 years ago, my Hawks from 2 years ago,
your beloved Hawks,
my beloved Hawks in 6, yes. The way that they would kill teams is not necessarily, they didn't have the bench unit that the Knicks had 2 years ago, but what they had was Gallo coming off the bench and Kevin Huerter off the bench, and these prototypical like starting 2s or 3s, or in Gallo's case, stretch 4s that, you take them, you put them in the game and they add like a stretch element to them. Now Fournier I don't think has the creativity of an Alec Burks, but like there are moments when given the chance to, that he could do that. Also, like this is what he did in Orlando. This is what he did in the brief stretch with the Celtics.
I was about to say in Boston.
He was their backup. I guess he started in Orlando, but regardless, the ways I remembered Fournier in Orlando were like, oh, Evan Fournier is just being instant offense. They need him to go get a bucket. And I think that the good teams out there don't necessarily worry about contract dictating playing time. They worry about fit dictating playing time. Look no further than Duncan Robinson. And I think if the Knicks, want to value the Grimes stuff, the Grimes starting 2 stuff, I think is fascinating. And if they were to make Fournier doesn't like ruffle any feathers with like, I'm the second highest paid player on the team. Or third highest paid player on the team. Why am I coming off the bench? He just notices that there's a better fit for him in a backup role.
So you mentioned the sign and trade possibility before. I don't think we're going to see Fournier in a sign and trade. For a few reasons. One, the math. I'm not going all Jeremy nerdy on you guys here, but
the simplification is that the Mavs are hard capped, right?
The Mavs are hard capped, and they would, or they're they're actually it doesn't. They're a tax team. That's what's more important here, and their hard cap actually doesn't come into play here. It's because they're a tax team. It has to do with how far apart the salaries could be in a trade on the outgoing on their end. And they would need to include Frank Ntilikina in the trade. And, I think they like Frank,
I'm just the idea. Yeah.
But I also
that's the side of trade,
the Mavs really want Fournier. Now, I think the more interesting name, and you heard Mark Stein report over the weekend, is they're still looking for a wing, is Cam Reddish. And you'll notice in the 5-man or in the 10-man unit that I just went through, there's no room for Cam Reddish. And unless one of those players gets dealt, there is not going to be any room for Cam Reddish. So I think if you're looking at this like a Knicks fan, or as a Knicks fan right now, even if you think Julius is going to get traded between now and opening night, and we're all waiting on the Durant domino to fall, and I think after the Durant domino falls, if there's a Julius trade, it'll shake out then. We'll see who doesn't get what they want, who's desperate, who's trying to make a play going into the season, this, that, the other thing. We could talk about that in a bit. But even if he gets traded, and we've talked about a little of this before, does anybody really think Cam Reddish is going to be your backup 4?
Well,
I don't.
You said anybody.
Okay. Do we think anybody currently employed
no
as a New York Knicks either head coach or even assistant coach?
Look, man, there's a movement that thinks that Cam Reddish is not only should be the backup four, should be the starting four, should be the starting three, should be the starting Eastern Conference representative for the Knicks in the All-Star game, should be the starting, opening day starter for the Mets. That's how highly they think of Cam Reddish.
Here's the thing. And again, never doubt Ian Begley's reporting. And I'm fairly certain this was from Ian, where he reported look, there are people within the Knicks who want to see what Cam could do. They still believe in Cam's upside. I'm sure there are. And for that reason, I think they're in a really, and this is why I wrote what I wrote a few weeks ago before free agency, on the eve of free agency, in fact. I think they put themselves in a really tight spot with Cam because they made this kind of theoretical upside play with this kid who clearly has all this talent. And he clearly also does not jive with what they're trying to do right now, which is putting the best players on the floor to try to win games right now. And as of right now, if you compare him to everybody else on the roster, even after Burks is gone, it's I'm forgetting who else did they get rid of. It was Burks, Noel, and Kemba. Yeah. So you're talking about making one more move, and it would probably have to be Derrick Rose. And I'm sorry, Derrick Rose is not going anywhere. So I would not be surprised if there was a sign and trade with Dallas. I would not be surprised if it was Cam, because that kills a few birds with the same stone. If you're Dallas, if you're making a sign and trade, or let me rephrase that. If you're the Knicks and you're doing a sign and trade with Dallas and you're doing them that favor, because you're helping them out by doing any kind of a sign and trade, whether it's for a player, trade exception, or both, you're not helping them for free. So then that puts the ball back in Dallas's court. And you're at Dallas, you say, these guys tampered and fucked us over and got this kid that we wanted by all kinds of shiesty means. And now they want to hold our feet over the fire in a sign and trade. Well, screw them. And then they may calm down and say, well, at the very least, we're going to make sure we're getting exactly what we want and then some. If we have to give up a real thing to get it. And then the ball goes back to the Knicks court, and you can say, all right, well, we clear Cam and we get a real thing. Now, what is the real thing? I'm not going to sit here and go through all the different possibilities of picks and do they lessen the protections on next year's pick? Whatever. The Knicks will get a thing that they want. And on paper, it's a very, very good trade for the Mavs and probably not a great trade for the Knicks. But really secretly, the Knicks are like, boy, let's be thankful we got something for Cam before it got ugly. And he's on our roster and he's not getting off the bench on opening night. That is why I still think the sign and trade is a possibility. And if it doesn't happen, I would bet on some other move being made where Cam gets shipped out for either whether it's a future pick or as part of a deal with Randle, which I don't know if you want to talk about that now. I guess we can move on to that before we get to Mitchell. Well,
so the Randle thing might actually transition into Mitchell, because there may be a team out there that we could wait on the Randle thing. The only thing I'll say about Cam is at this point, to maximize that potential that people see in him, the talent that he clearly has, I wonder if it's a team like that 2019 Knicks team that winning just isn't the point of the season. You're not to say that if you win games with him, it's a bad thing, but he needs to go to a team that is solely focused on development, not even necessarily OKC, because I actually think they're going to try to take a step toward winning this year. I hope. Question mark. Listen, at a certain point,
they just had to cut Isaiah. Didn't they just cut Isaiah? Was it Isaiah Roby they cut?
You would know that better than I would.
They just cut a guy who I'm pretty sure is Isaiah Roby, who's like a good player, and they're already loaded with players that need time.
I guess my point was Lou Dort extension. Shea is still there. Chet Holmgren draft. The two first that they got in the first round, although trading for the Knicks pick at 11. My thought is they're okay winning 30 games this year rather than making sure they win less than 25. All that being said, I'm with you. I don't agree that, or see that there is a rotation spot for Cam Reddish, which, I mean, is that, I guess my question to you would be, should there be a rotation spot for Reddish, or is that like above our pay grade?
See, I think this gets directly at the heart of why so many people out there, mostly national media people, not everybody, few people have defended what the Knicks have done, because it's like, hey, they got a good basketball player. That's what you're supposed to do as a basketball team, and at a position of need and the whole thing. But the criticism has been like, what are you doing if you're the Knicks? Like, you're not good enough to compete for anything legitimate. You should be just playing as many kids as possible. If that means losing a ton of games, lose a ton of games. I think it's a valid critique. I think it's absolutely a valid critique. I think the fact that they are going to, in all likelihood, hold on to Derrick Rose and have him play real minutes because they believe in his leadership ability, and to say nothing of the fact that my God, Derrick Rose might still be the best player on the team when he's on the court and healthy. Like, so, and why are they doing that? They're doing that because they do not believe in instilling a culture of losing. They do not believe in just handing out minutes. They do not believe in any of that stuff. Tom Thibodeau doesn't believe in any of that stuff. There are people in the front office that don't believe in any of that stuff. And they still believe, and then this is the transition to Donovan Mitchell, that if they play respectably and they look like a place like this is a winning organization, imagine if I went there and I was the final piece, that it is going to be appealing to a star. Now, is Donovan Mitchell that star?
Can I, before you go into this, so I wrote down 3 questions that I thought would be appropriate to, from my perspective, which
on the Mitchell thing.
Yeah. Well, no, just in general for this pod, like I have to, as much as we wanted to shoot the shit here, I wanted to have like some type of uniformed plan.
And that's why I love you.
So like you kind of addressed it in the newsletter, which I'll tell people to go read today about Mitch, and Jeremy also. I'm more curious on both of your thoughts because you guys will understand what value actually is. And it was more about whether Mitch is overpaid or not. I have a Randle question that we could save for our, like the final quote unquote segment. So as far as the Donovan Mitchell question I have is, would the Knicks be panicking into a superstar trade in what right now seems like you have to very much overpay after seeing what DeJounte Murray got, after seeing, holy shit, what Rudy Gobert cost? Like, would it be an overpay to do what it would probably take to get Donovan Mitchell right now?
Right now?
Yes. Because that's the thing. If Danny Ainge is looking at this is like, I'm going to blow it up now and so rebuild the Jazz, you know?
It would be an overpay and it would be desperation because of the overpay. So I've been thinking this again. I've had a lot of time to sit in my own thoughts, Andrew. Here's what I've come up with. And I wrote about this, and I won't rehash everything I wrote, but in short, based on what those trades were, especially for Gobert, because obviously Ainge just traded Gobert. Like, that trade set the market. Whether Minnesota wanted to set the market or not, they set the market. And that makes a Durant trade more difficult, and it makes a Donovan Mitchell trade more difficult. And it's okay. You know, we could sit here and say it's Minnesota. They've been past this first round once in 33 years. They, like, if not now, then when? They have this idea of zigging when everybody else is zagging, or whatever, vice versa. Like, you can talk yourself into why they justified it to themselves. It still does no favors for anybody else in trying to make a big deal, which means Danny Ainge, as of right now, as of today, this is why you ask me right now. Right now, Danny Ainge is not going to accept less than the Gobert package for Donovan Mitchell. In fact, he's going to demand more because Donovan Mitchell is ostensibly a better, more impactful basketball player. The Knicks know that. And that is why they're not going to trade, I don't believe, for Donovan Mitchell right now. And I think they are going to wait this out. And I think if they're going to wait this out, it becomes a very interesting situation because Donovan Mitchell is, everybody knows, has 3 years left on his contract, and he has a player option that he could just opt out of. So he can really start to put the screws on a team in a year or so if he wants to. And I believe that is when it's going to happen, because people keep talking about the All-Star game being in Utah, right? And that's a reason why they don't want to trade Donovan Mitchell. Danny Ainge will trade Donovan Mitchell tomorrow if he gets the package that he wants. Mm-hmm. What I think the other ramification of the All-Star gaming in Utah is Donovan Mitchell, I think, does not want to be public enemy number one in Utah for that All-Star game by coming out. And I'm sure he wants to be traded today. Of course he wants to be traded today. We all know he doesn't want to play in Utah anymore. But is he going to make it ugly? I don't believe he is going to make it ugly. I don't believe Danny Ainge thinks he's going to make it ugly. And I think Danny Ainge is using the fact Donovan Mitchell is not going to make it ugly to continue to demand a haul and a half for Mitchell, which is why I don't think it makes sense for the Knicks to trade for him right now. Because if they give up that package for Mitchell, and this gets back to what I wrote over the weekend, they're not going to have anything left to trade for the guy you put next to Mitchell. And with all due respect to RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin, and if you want to throw Julius Randle in there, that is not a contending team. It's just not a contending team.
Not a contending team for a title, that's for sure. I
mean, is there a possibility that things break just right and that team maybe gets home court one year? I mean, sure, the Knicks got home.
There's 4 seed potential.
I mean, look, under Tibbs, who the hell knows? Maybe he gets Donovan Mitchell to defend. There's a novel thought. Maybe Julius Randle, the Julius Randle of 2 years or a year and a half ago, comes back.
I know you don't want to hear this, but I think a Donovan Mitchell trade also signals the march toward Johnny Bryant sooner rather than later. Fine. Also, so the under Tibbs thing doesn't play as much of a part to me. I think the thing that's fascinating to me is that, and Jeremy, when you're here on Sunday, correct me if I'm wrong, the idea of Jalen Brunson coming here, and I doubt Leon would ever trade his godson, but was that he can now be the piece going out in a Donovan Mitchell trade. So all of these kids that the fan base clutches their pearls at when we suggest them being in any type of deal don't have to go out in a trade for Donovan Mitchell because Jalen Brunson is the star or the controllable young piece going back to Utah in a type of deal.
I'll give you a hot take.
What's up?
This would be pretty hot. Am I sure I want to go that hot? The take was this. I'm not sure if I believe it though. I think Jalen Brunson is the player now on the Knicks least likely to be traded
of anybody else on the
of anybody on the roster. And the only reason I stop myself is I do believe they see RJ Barrett not as just like we're going to put forth that he's the face of the franchise, but really secretly we think differently. I think they really do see RJ as the face of the franchise. But if you think they're trading Mitchell, what is this front office all about? Relationships. All they're about.
You mean Brunson? You think if they're trading Brunson? You said you think if they're trading Mitchell?
Yes. Sorry, Brunson. Yes. That's what I meant. Yeah. Freudian slip. They're all about relationships. That's what they're all about. And you think the most important relationship that they have with a player in all of basketball, they're going to shit on just so they can ship him off to Utah to get, no, it's not going to happen.
Which is why, I don't know. I'm increasingly, so, okay. You might know this better than I would because you might have studied this more, but we all know Donovan Mitchell grew up a fan of the baseball team I grew up a fan of, but did he grow up a Knicks fan?
That's a great question.
Because is this a Kyrie thing where he's fine going to Brooklyn? Because there's the Kevin Durant looming thing and the Brian Windhorse. Now, what does that mean? Of potentially Mitchell ending up in some type of 3 or 4 team trade in Brooklyn as the return piece for Kevin Durant going somewhere and eventually picks ending up in Utah.
My 2 cents is I think he'd be totally fine with going to Brooklyn, and all of the whispers, people whisper to me, people whisper to other people who then, whisper to me. It's like if I'm just being honest, I think he wants to go to Miami. I think that's his preference.
Okay.
Just like 98% of NBA players. Except
Miami's nice
Brunson.
year round, yeah. Except Jalen Brunson, yeah.
Yeah, which is part of why they wanted him. He wanted to be here, and I don't godson or no godson, forget godson, son or no son.
Mm-hmm.
I think he wanted to be here because he wants to be here because we know Jalen Brunson grew up a Knicks fan.
That is true. Yeah,
that is a fact. I think Donovan Mitchell wants to be in a place where he can grow his brand. And I think he could grow his brand just fine in Brooklyn. So I don't think that would stop him, which is why I think that is your work. If you're a Knicks fan who wants Donovan Mitchell here, or maybe you're not in love with Donovan Mitchell, but you know they need to get a star and you think this is the best chance they have to trade for a star, you should be rooting for Kevin Durant to get traded to Miami. Or I suppose Toronto. Basically, you should be rooting for Kevin Durant to get traded to anywhere other than Phoenix. Because to me, if he gets traded to Phoenix, then, and we don't have to go into this because people already know, that's the blueprint for how you get Donovan Mitchell to Brooklyn. Because Phoenix sends whatever they send to Utah, and then Donovan Mitchell gets sent to Brooklyn.
There's going to be multiple teams involved in this eventual Kevin Durant trade. I think collectively we've all said next summer's the Donovan Mitchell trade summer if he's still there and available. And I think that's better for the Knicks. And it is better, because it gives their assets a better chance to appreciate. Look, one of two things is going to happen this year. They're going to win a lot more games than people expect, and they're going to be a more desirable place that way. Where actually, who knows? Maybe you could talk yourself into, well, maybe they are one star away, because if they're a better team than people expect, guess what? That means whether it's Julius Randle had a really good year, the kids had a really good year, RJ Barrett took a step up, a lot of really good stuff happened for them to have a good year, or they don't have a good year. And guess what happens if they don't have a really good year? They have another pretty high draft pick. And if Jeremy is to be believed, we'll see if he is. That's the trade that they're targeting to try to move up in the draft. And if they can move up in the draft, that means they can help another team move up potentially to the top of the draft. And there is your trade asset. There is your thing you put into the trade so that maybe you don't need to mortgage everything to go get the first star, and you still have stuff left to get the second guy. So I think the re-ranking of the East, or where we see the East ending up, is better for Patreon later. Sign up if you'd like to hear us talk about the general NBA at large. You mentioned, we've mentioned Julius a couple times today, and I think the best place to wrap is the last question on my list. A lot of us have speculated or really wished that a priority of this offseason was trading Julius Randle. I'm not calling it dead yet, that dream, but
don't call it dead.
So the fact that Julius is still here right now on July 5th, do you consider this offseason a success that they kind of executed plan A? Or is it a failure because plan A didn't involve trading Julius Randle?
I'm collecting my thoughts.
Collect away.
Part of me was going to be like, the failure was in giving him the extension to begin with, but
in the moment we were all fine with it. We
were more than fine with it. I think I wrote at the time that it was the most significant Knicks happening in this century. The fact that a guy who got MVP votes decided to sign for I don't know how $50 or $60 million, $70 million less than he would have potentially been able to sign for in a year.
That's a follow question I have, but I'll ask it in a minute.
The real failure, and again, to expect that any front office would have done this, I don't know, would have if you're looking for one failure point now, it's that they didn't trade Randle when he was in the midst of having that great season 2 years ago. Reshuffle the deck. I don't know, whatever. and basically that, establish yourself as like, no, we know how we need to build this, and we're going to use every asset at our disposal. And the fact that this guy's going out there and having this kind of year, now that takes away the We Here season, that takes away the Big 15, that takes away all our wonderful memories, and that sucks. It was the right thing to do in retrospect. That ship has sailed. To say that it's a failure that they didn't trade Randle this offseason, I think is unfair, because that's implying that they had a good deal that they didn't take.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've said it, I don't know when I said it at some point, that Zach Lowe on this podcast, do I have any coffee left? Let's sip coffee. Said Julius Randle, eminently gettable. Eminently gettable. That's what he said on his pod before last. So that is a signal that teams around the league are very aware that they could have Julius Randle if they want to, but the Knicks are not giving him away. Or I should phrase it differently. The Knicks want it to be a fair deal. Last season's struggles baked in, obviously, but they are not selling him for 8 cents on the dollar. They'll try, I don't know how many cents on the dollar they're going to sell him for, but it's going to be a trade that they're going to feel good about, as opposed to we just got to get out from under this guy. Because again, and as much as I dislike him, that would not be responsible team building.
Mm-mm.
So that's why I'm interested to see what happens when the dust settles. And you know what? If Julius Randle's on the team opening night, am I going to love it? Of course not. I'm not going to love it. But I think all it means is the right deal never came along. Now, if you're the Knicks and you're looking at this and you're saying, well, why do we think the right deal is going to come along at a later point in time? I think Jalen Brunson will help. I think Jalen Brunson will help make Julius Randle look better. I think an improved RJ Barrett will help Julius Randle look better. I think whatever the hell was going on above Julius Randle's neck last year, who knows? Hopefully that gets sorted out and Julius Randle looks better. He can't look worse. He literally can't look worse. Can't shoot worse. Can't look worse. He can't play, with a more dejected spirit. So, and based on what I understand about what they're thinking, he'll be moved. It's just a matter of when they could get that deal. And I don't think it's crazy to look around the league and say at some point, some team will talk themselves into him, especially, and this goes back to the thing that you raised before with all these picks going on, all these trades. Teams, and again, obviously you want to save it for the right player, but teams are putting picks into deals. And I think there will be a team, and that's what the Knicks want. That's what the Knicks want. They want something to add to the coffers.
And right now, Randle's not an asset to add to the coffers. He's, if anything, a net neutral asset in any deal. Which, I mean, look, there's been speculation, but like there's been speculation. I think even you've speculated that to get Randle out right now, it would cost the Knicks a pick rather than it would add any pick to their collection right now. I
think you need a perfect situation to trade Randle at the very least before the season. And I think here's what you need. I think you need a team, and we've said versions of this before, but just to kind of really put it in focus, you need a team that's a little bit desperate not to win a championship, because I don't think a championship contender, absent really strange or unique circumstances, I don't think a contender is trading for Randle. You need a team that's desperate to get in the playoffs, maybe try to win a round. So that's number one. You have, and then you're going to have a team that has bad salary, but not so bad that the Knicks are going to look at it as just like unpalatable in terms of their larger goals as an organization. And I think there is a team out there, and like, look, I feel bad even talking about this because it relates to what Miles Bridges did, which is fucking reprehensible. And I would very much like for justice to come for him again, as just that's an issue I'm very passionate about. That said, the Hornets are historically in the NBA perhaps the team that is like, hey, let's get in the playoffs. Let's maybe win a round. Like that's the team that has been their MO for a long time, has not changed under Michael Jordan. That situation now is out there. They are, by all indications, seems like they are just like Miles Bridges is not going to be a part of their team. So, right. Yeah.
I don't think Miles Bridges is going to play basketball ever again.
I hope not.
That is the take I'm going out on. Yeah.
We could say this and then we can refer back to things in the past where it's like, hey, look at that guy did XYZ and played X sport again.
I hesitate to say post Me Too world because we're not like it's a present Me Too world, but I look at Trevor Bauer. I look at there's no person there's not even an NBA GM or NBA PR team that could read the police report and his fiance, wife's, whatever she was to him, her Instagram post, as well as see the photos and then see the video of his child talking to, I don't know if it was grandma or aunt, but basically telling the sequence of events of what happened. I just, once you have that, this is something that Oz and Yash have talked about. Once you actually have an audible or a visual representation of an incident, and you're not just reading it, it crystallizes things for people. And on issues in an NBA that is seemingly progressive, I doubt that they'd be able to spin any type of comeback story or any type of rehabilitation for Miles Bridges as far as on the court is concerned.
I hope so.
That rehabilitation needs to be behind bars, in my personal opinion, but we'll leave that to this justice system,
which is a frightening thought in its own right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's not going to be around. They have this fun young team, which he was, and they also have, I don't know how old Gordon Hayward is, 31, 32 years old, whatever he is, who is very expensive, does not really fit with their timeline. And if ever there was a team, and look, they've done 2 deals with the Knicks in the past year and 2 weeks, whatever it's been. They are clearly comfortable trading. Now, I would imagine that the deal would be, and again, here's the other bonus. Here's your Cam Reddish team.
Mm-hmm.
It's Randle and it's Reddish for Hayward. And if you're listening to this and you want to vomit, that's fine, because it all comes. This is not about getting rid of Julius Randle. It's not about getting rid of Cam Reddish. It's not about getting Gordon Hayward. It's about what is Charlotte going to give you.
The picks you get back in the deal.
And can you get, and again, what is the best thing? Like, the Knicks ain't doing this for the Denver pick that they traded to Charlotte from OKC on draft night. That's not getting this done. This would have to be a future first with very light protections. Maybe that rolls over once if it doesn't convert the first year. Does Charlotte have the appetite for trading a pick of that nature? If they do they have an appetite for trading it for Julius Randle and Cam Reddish? Again, this has a lot to do with their priorities. But that's the type of deal where I could see a team being desperate enough and the Knicks getting what they want on a few different fronts. And credit to Jeremy, he's the first one that brought up Hayward as possibility last season.
This was his first cap or no cap. This Gordon Hayward trade that the Knicks could possibly do. And
it makes me even more sense now. It makes even more sense now that you have, and by the way, who's the new, everything old is new again. The new head coach of the Charlotte Hornets. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name.
Steve Clifford.
Steve Clifford. Thank you. Big ball guy. Good friends with Tom Thibodeau. And so might this come down to Cliff being like, hey, Tom, what's really going on with this guy? And what does Tom say? I don't know. Who the hell knows what he's going to say?
So 2 things. One, Julius, as somebody who lived in Virginia and particularly loved to go down to Charlotte to take in the sights and go check out the movie theater they have there. You'll love it. You'll be able to clear your head. You go 10 minutes outside of Charlotte, and there's nothing but open land and mountains. It's basically like just New York, but the middle of New York. There's not the extension or the attention onto the team. They're a NASCAR city anyway, and like the Hornets are much further down the pecking order. Also, they're a college basketball town, so you'll be able to, steer clear of any negative media attention whatsoever. You could skip a press conference and nobody would notice.
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, you would, like, unless you did it like at a Tar Heel game. And you know what? Because you're on the Hornets, you'll get not front row seats because they don't care about the Hornets that much, but you'll get primary discounts off of Tar Heel and Duke and Wake Forest and NC State games. You'll love it, my man. The other question, I was just curious, your thoughts on what Randle's market would have been as a free agent if he had not signed his extension.
Oh my goodness. Woo, that's a doozy you're dropping on me at the end of a podcast. So what would his let's set the stage.
Yeah.
He's coming off of this exact last season.
Last season that he had. Now, there's so many other butterfly effect dominoes that would have had to fall. In other words, the Knicks didn't trade him last year, didn't buy him out after the turmoil. They would have.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if they bought him out?
Well, so it's a Cantor thing. If they couldn't find a deal for him at the deadline, and it's like, well, we want to pivot to a younger player like Mitch, or in this case, Obi, to get the primary minutes. Julius, go find a team. What would his market have been, basically? Because I'm looking, and it kind of hints to the Mitch Robinson question I was going to ask earlier. Mitch getting 4 for $60, and you called it a bit of an overpay. Jeremy called it a bit of an overpay. And there are pockets that are like, listen, Rudy Gobert just cost 5 first-round picks. Jusuf Nurkic just got $70 million. If a healthy Mitch is, I don't know how much better than a healthy Nerlens Noel, then why isn't he worth, $60 million over a 4-year deal if the contract has a team option, is descending, whatever. Julius's market, would he been able to get $90 million this offseason, $85 million this offseason? Or based off of 2 years ago, would he still have cracked 4 years, 100, 106, whatever the deal was? 117 was the extension, I think it was.
Here's the problem. Who's the team paying him?
There's no team with cap space. Yeah.
Who's the team that's going to give him the money? Mm-hmm. The Blazers operated as an over the cap team this summer. There's an answer that popped into my head, but before I say it out loud, I want to, because here's the other part of this. If the Knicks had him, then you're bringing in the possibility of a sign and trade, because he definitely would not be signing for so much more than his previous salary that base year compensation would come into play. So I think it would be a pretty easy sign and trade to execute. You would just need to find a willing partner. Man, I'm literally just looking at the teams that are in the National Basketball Association, as it were. Oh my God, this can't be the right answer.
I stumped him. Okay.
No, I have an answer. Why
not just it's one answer. So there's no market for Julius Randle. There's a suitor.
My gut reaction is he goes somewhere on the full mid-level as a make good deal. That's my answer.
That's how bad he was this past season?
Because what are the other possibilities? The other possibilities are he goes somewhere to one of the 6 teams that had cap space. Show me the cap space team that wants Julius Randle. You want to tell me the Pistons? Okay, well then in that scenario, the Pistons aren't making all those trades with Knicks. What's more valuable to the Pistons? They get whatever they got from the Knicks in terms of they're very clearly building it. Slow and steady wins the race. So I don't think they're a Randle team. I'm thinking of the other cap space teams like Indiana. We think Indiana wants Julius Randle? What are they? Okay, fine. Let's say Indiana. What could they have? By the way, they still have a bunch of cap space because they may be an 8 team. You want to tell me they strike out on Ayton and they give Randle 2 for $40?
So similar to the contract he got basically with the Knicks initially, yeah.
But here's the thing: when he signed with the Knicks for 3 for 60 or 3 for 63 with a team option, by the way, team option on last year, and a guy knows a slightly lower cap then. He was coming off a much better year than he's coming off this past year. Now, we also did not have the MVP season in our rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. So that factors in. Man, you really did. Great question.
So 4 for 117 is what was the official extension, by the way?
4 for 106.
4 for 106. So just above Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
So 4 for 106 wasn't happening this offseason.
I really do. I think he goes to a situation 1 year, $10 million. I'm going to make good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make good and I'm going to get paid next summer. Or maybe, again, a team like the Pacers. I'm trying to think of another team besides the Pacers who had cap space that would have looked at it and be like, it's okay. I mean, San Antonio's trying to get.
They're trying to lose as many games.
They're trying to lose as many. Yeah.
Although maybe they look at Julius Randle as we can turn him into the good stats, bad team player. And then trade him for more assets as we're tanking this year. You know, maybe we're 10 games over at the deadline, and then we trade him to a team that's looking to get better. Regardless, my thought was go ahead. Sorry.
Let me just close. The only thing I feel like, and I would really need to scour the league to really be able to answer. And we're not going to do this now, but is there a sign and trade that I'm not seeing where the Knicks would sign him for a bigger contract and some team would want him and then send back salary? But that gets us back to the exact same conversation we were having 10 minutes ago about, well, why haven't we had a Julius Randle trade yet? And the difference between those two things is in a sign and trade, theoretically, the Knicks would not ask for as much back, but they would ask for something back. Mm-hmm. And how much is the difference between what the Knicks would ask back for Julius Randle now on this contract versus what the Knicks would ask back for a sign and trade? I don't really see that big of a, yeah, I don't. Yeah, anyway, sorry.
The point of the question was more to be a little not defensive of the front office, but like you said, Julius Randle is gettable according to Take Your Drink, Zach Lowe. Eminently gettable. And look, you've heard it, Chris has heard it, any of the people with knowledge of the situation has heard it, that they know his value. Fred Katz said it on here, that they have done their homework to find out what Julius Randle's value is, and it's not at a place where TJ, whoa, read what we just got from Shams.
I mean, I don't know if this is a whoa. Free agent guard TJ Warren has agreed to a 1-year deal with the Brooklyn Nets. So it's just tell
any roster spot being taken by the Brooklyn Nets right now is fascinating to me, because it tells me one of two things. Either they're going to stare at both of these dudes in the face and say, you're under contract, we're not trading you. Look at the depth we're building with Royce O'Neal and Patty Mills coming back, and now TJ Warren. Or we're now making sure our team isn't dog shit because we can't tank because the Rockets can swap with us this year. And as a result, this is a kind of insurance towards that. Anyway, that is a conversation for the Patreon pod.
Well, hold on. I just want to look and see. Oh, interesting. Okay. So they, as of now, unless they get below the tax, which who the hell knows how this is all going to end up in terms of the deal we're not disclosed. As of now, all they have is the taxpayer mid-level. So the taxpayer mid-level is $6.5 million, which, probably it's about right for a guy who hasn't played basketball in 2 years, more or less. Mm-hmm. He was the last. I mean, he was I would say, other than Ayton, who's obviously restricted, he was the last name guy on the market. I don't know. Does this affect? To me, this is more evidence that the Nets are really, when they say we want a young all-star, which is what has been reported, what they want for Kevin Durant. I think they mean it. As opposed to just a bunch of picks.
Right. To close the loop on the Julius question I had, it was more to just, explain how difficult trading a 4-year 106 for Julius Randle contract is going to be.
Yep.
Which, as much as we all don't, and my reasons for not liking it, because I do think the Knicks got better. They will be better than 37 and 45. I'm confident in. And if they aren't, then some significant changes either should be made or are going to be made because the owner doesn't want to have to deal with the agita anymore. But is there a best case scenario where, because Kemba's now Jalen Brunson, because Fournier is now in a backup role and Grimes is there, and so the perimeter defense is better, that like Julius, because he has a second person that can command some gravity, a better RJ Barrett this year, that 7-game stretch in February that we saw can be closer to the mean for what Randle is next year, rather than the majority of what last season was, which was inefficient long twos and jogging back on defense. And, the Obi thing is more why I wanted Randle gone, but maybe, they can rehabilitate his value and then revisit this conversation next deadline, or everybody
earlier.
Hold back earlier, or hold back your vomit later next summer,
There are so many easy ways that Julius Randle can be better next year. One, trying. It's a good. Sorry, didn't mean to make you spit out whatever you're drinking.
You got me. I was drinking it. Then John made it funny. There you go.
Trying. He's wasn't just in the MVP candidacy season. The year before that, and even maybe the year before that, not terrible. He's been good from the corners before. He didn't take any corner threes last year. He took 51 corner threes in 72 games. With Jalen Brunson running the show, there should be a minimum, if assuming Randle's going to play a commensurate number of minutes, minimum 3 corner 3 attempts a game for Julius Randle. Like, if he could hit that shot at a 36, 37% clip, like, that's fine. That will help. Roll more. Just roll. Go to the basket more. Go to the basket harder. Again, playing off of a guy like Brunson in the pick and roll that defenses have to respect in a different way, that should help Julius Randle. Like, all of the and just like regression to the mean. Like, he's going to shoot better. All of these things, if he does them over a month, all of a sudden Julius Randle is going to look just fine on his current contract. And then it's a matter of, okay, well, where do you send? And the other part of it, I think teams do, I did not based on any inside information, but if I had to guess, I'm sure teams want to see that he's not cuckoo bananas anymore.
That this is fixable. Yeah. I agree.
That he's not a lost. So then who would the teams be? I think Portland remains a team to look for. Because they still have the Eric Bledsoe contract. That is the best in terms of just like for salary purposes, trade piece for like a larger salary in the league. They're out there. I would say, well, the Mavs ship is going to sail if they don't include Julius in a sign and trade. And again, that would be financially difficult because it would require another big piece going out. So I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know. Portland's the one I have my eye on. Charlotte, we talked about. Maybe Washington kicks the tires at some point, although at this point I don't see it. But even if he goes out and plays better, it's not going to be a laundry list of teams. At the same time, all you need is one.
We shall see. I love how we came on here with the intention of a quick shoot the shit podcast, and we're about to cross the hour mark.
There you go. This is what we're good at, Andrew.
Yes. Shooting the shit. Look at us.
Anything I forgot before we get out of here?
No. Get well soon to Macri's not named Jonathan, and a pod coming later this week, and then Jeremy back on Monday morning, and some summer league post games coming soon. Friday night, the Knicks tip off their summer league schedule against Golden State. They play again on Sunday afternoon at 5 p.m., which will have a post game followed by that's I guess when we're recording. Jeremy will we'll text later. Hope you're enjoying your vacation, bud. And yeah, stay tuned for some summer league content coming from KFS in the not too distant future.
I love it. And it's a good time to get off because I've been sitting on this chair the whole time, and I cannot feel my ass anymore.
Okay.
So on that note, thank you everybody for spending another another one of your hours with us. We hope you enjoyed, and we will talk to you soon. Peace out.